Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being at the work session today. We have got several issues that we want to discuss quickly, but what we will do is we usually open in prayer. And since I'm low on ministers this morning, I guess I'll do the prayer again. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that you've given each of us to come out to do the good work of the business of the city. We appreciate each elected official and also each community volunteer who is here today looking to do what is right and best for the citizens of Columbus. We pray that you will be with us as we deliberate and discuss these issues and help us prepare for our next council meeting on Tuesday. In thy name we pray, amen. All right. First up on discussion is the Redevelopment Authority. I think we have Martha Lee and Jason Spears here today.
Good morning, everyone, council members. We appreciate being here today. Well, we want to give, Jason's going to give an update, and then I wanted to address something specifically. We're here today on behalf of the Redevelopment Board to seek approval from the city to continue marketing the Woodies on the Water property. We were sorry that deal did not go through, but you know, that happens, but we still feel that it's a great place to find somebody a good home to be in and add something to Columbus. Since the city, you know, this is a new administration, since we first had taken on the job of marketing it, so we thought we should revisit this. We would like to recommend continuing marketing the property with the 60-40 split between the city and the redevelopment when the property sells. That would be 60% going to the city and 40% going to the redevelopment.
Okay.
So.
This being a work session, there won't be any action taken.
Right. So we would just appreciate your consideration, and we will look forward to an answer. Or if you have any questions.
Council, do you have any questions about the 60-40 split? And so y'all are actively still marketing the Woodies on the Water?
Yes,
Good.
yes. But we thought we should formally come and come before you again since it's a new administration. So,
all right.
Anyway.
Thank you, Martha Lee.
Thank you.
Mr. Spears?
Yes, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and kind of give you a little update about what the CRA is doing and, of course, our next steps. I don't know if my colleagues will tell you, but I'm a data guy, so I'll show you this. But these are some of the information bullet points that we're using. I've tried to look at some of the things, the projects, how the CRA has been doing Burns Bottom, also kind of expand that reach and look across the city as pockets of opportunity. I know that we've currently engaged and continue to work with prospects that are going to start making things happen very close to that property in the coming months, is our hope. And then, of course, just as we talk about the Woodies on the Water property, you know, actively marketing that and continuing to build up different things besides ad valorem, which is one of the main drivers, but sales tax. How do we articulate ideas in these projects we're doing that's going to create more sales tax? Because that is certainly the lifeblood of what you see in your revenues. And Columbus, as you see things happening down the highway at the Lee Mall property, I believe over the next year to two is going to see a major uptick in that, and we want to capitalize on it. Now, as far as a pivot with respect to what's happening in Parkview, the Burns Bottom area, we're really tailoring that to a focus of how we can serve industry for their housing needs. We've already made connections there, and we're continuing to grab data to bring back. And once we have that information to analyze, then certainly I'll work with the board about us sharing that. And of course, the Air Force Base. This eye chart, as I call it, it's got so much data here, shows you everybody that comes to the Columbus Air Force Base, whether they're enlisted or whether they're a commissioned officer, what their housing allowances are. So that when we're trying to make this development, we know what those price points are. We know if we're going to have 2 to 3 individuals here who don't have a family, what those dollar amounts they have at their disposal to be able to afford those types of development. to move into downtown. And of course, how we can also build around that, because as you build out more residential there, that pushes more commercial into some of these vacant storefronts in downtown Columbus. So those are some of the things that you're going to see us continue to move forward with. It's our hope that as we continue to engage and work and, shoulder to shoulder with the council on, is that as we get into some of the needs we have, I mean, I know you've got paving and things that you're going to do, but if you look at some of those spots down there, I think I've mentioned to some of you before about as you come off of 5th Street, going down into the soccer complex, right there, 5th Avenue, going down to the soccer complex, right there at 4th Street, there's a huge, almost like well-looking drop off there. And so not only for the development timeline, it would be good, when we have soccer tournaments or other things coming up, that is kind of remediated in some way. So, and that helps us as we have other buyers coming in, looking at those parcels and working with developers. So that's just kind of a 50,000 view from where we're at right now. There'll be much more specificity brought to you as we turn the corner in 2023 with the development of things. And do you have any questions or concerns about what's going on?
Where did we leave it as marketing one block as opposed to the whole Bergen Bottom? Wasn't that discussed, and remind me if it was, where we're at?
Martha Lee, come over here so we can.
It was discussed, our board is still working on that. We've
Okay.
had some interest from some different developers, and as I told you the last time I was here, we had sent out some packets, but we're now hearing back even from some local people, so we're not just at that point to be able to make a decision about that.
Okay.
Yeah, but that is something we're still working on, so.
And if you look at from basically Second Avenue coming down from Munson's to about 5th, it's where you're going to see your commercial really fill in and start working its way to the residential. And then really 5th Avenue all the way down to 7th is where you're going. And of course, skipping over the street of 7th behind Little Dewey area is going to be your residential development. And so yes, I feel like that as what we've talked about, people are going to want to build it out in blocks and migrate those two together. Now, another idea is what's been talked about is that unlike downtown, to where you have apartments upstairs and commercial downstairs, being there on 3rd Street, you could have residential downstairs. And some developers may look at it and say you could have a 3-story apartment and get better rent so you don't have to worry about it. And how is that beneficial to Columbus? Well, you don't have the Stone Hotel that doesn't, have a tenant for their commercial, because if you bring more people downtown, you start pushing those commercial spaces into usage.
And how much of it again is commercial? It's just a small portion, right?
Well, I don't think there's been any parameters, right,
Well,
set
no,
for commercial.
Our drawing shows that behind, from the corner of 2nd
Behind Munson's?
Munson's over to 3rd Avenue, that block there is with commercial, we had residential on the upper floors.
Gotcha.
The upper stories.
But that is market driven, so it may not necessarily end up that way.
Right.
It could be more, it could be less.
That's correct. So the other commercial area that we have drawn in is where the old Chevron and the Fayette building was located on 5th Street and 5th Avenue. So that is what we've kind of designated as so we'll have commercial there, which you have commercial along there anyway, and then that's an entry point into the development as well. And so we're thinking that's probably not going to change.
And just while we're talking about it, let's for a minute talk about still the infrastructure needs of the area. As a reminder, I think it was at around 5 million, or was it a little less?
Right around there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last year, when we put forth with our lobbyist in Jackson, we asked for $1 million, the city did, from the state, to help with that, and we did not get that request. Since then, we've been trying to look at other ways to potentially find that money, because we feel like that's going to be important to do that. Y'all have thrown around different ideas. I know that y'all reached out to legislators and others within the community, the Board of Supervisors and others. Where are we kind of right now on that process, finding the
Well,
funds for that?
If I could answer that,
Okay.
one of the things that I would say is that I think while the housing that was there that was acquired and has now been removed, with the exception of a couple that were waiting on some DEQ and some other things to take care of them, it would be much more advantageous to actually explore and test what is there, because the housing might have not been what we want it to be.
Right.
But the infrastructure itself, pipelines and stuff, now you may want to move your utilities as far as power underground, but that would be something that would be more of an, cosmetic, type of move. If we could go through and maybe evaluate the infrastructures there and of course the volumes that would be needed there to support the bill that we're talking about, to see if that cost may come down.
It may come down, so that was
Yeah.
kind of an estimate of what we felt
Right.
like, yeah. But what you're saying is that some of this infrastructure that's there might be usable and might
Yeah.
not need replacing.
Well, I mean, it was
Right.
there to begin with.
Well,
and
right.
it was usable to begin with, and I would think that if we could just analyze to see, are there certain things that do need to be improved upon
Right.
in order to make it a much better type build out, because,
But being usable, what's there now may not be usable for what could come in the future, correct?
well, that goes back to the quantity, what it was servicing that was there before and what it is now.
Right.
Well, there are some drainage issues, so we do
Yeah.
have that, and, also we were trying to be in keeping with the way, the soccer complex has the
Yes.
wider sidewalks and the street lighting and all of that, so that was encompassing a good bit of that, to continue that look into the development, so.
And where
it
are
all
y'all thinking the
flows
best
through.
option now is to help with that funding?
The Appalachian Regional Commission, I have a call into them to speak with them. They can help us on the commercial areas. They can't on
Right,
the
on
residential.
residential.
So I mean, the best way I think is to say we're exploring all avenues.
Yeah.
If we can't get it all at one time, then maybe we can, come in pieces or whatever. So unfortunately, we don't have a solid answer on that, but we're not.
But that's a good update, though. It gives us an
Yeah,
idea where you're
yeah, and we're not just trying to rely on the city, I mean, we're looking.
Oh, I understand.
And we
Right.
talked to MDA too, so, but I mean, we want y'all to know we're looking at all avenues, so.
Well, and the city needs to be supportive, though. Y'all are, and I will take the opportunity to say this. I want to thank both of you for being here. This redevelopment board is a volunteer board. There are a lot of people over the years since it's been developed that have spent a lot of their valuable time trying to help move this project forward. And we are always very appreciative for those of you who are willing to serve on the board. And I have told the council this and will continue. I think we need to try to be as supportive as we can. The best way to do that is try to always get the information out and work together. Y'all work together as a board, and we work together as a mayor and council to try to move all this forward, because it's going to be very beneficial for the city. And there's a lot of other great opportunities within the city for the redevelopment authority to pursue at a later date.
Right,
Well, and I completely agree, and I think that's one of the one thing that you have to understand is that the city, you committed $3 million to the project and how it's come together now. But what I don't think is kind of fully valued is the fact is that when this happens, it is a game changer for everything else.
Absolutely.
Because then you can start looking at how you take those types of aspects of what you're trying to do and you push it out across the whole city. And, I can't tell you how much, when I looked at the numbers when I was on the school board, ad valorem tax increases. If you bring one thing up, everything else follows. And so if you really want to see the revenue strengthen, you want to see less crime, you want to see all the things that y'all tackle every single meeting, this is something that helps propel you to that next level to making it happen. And if you stand behind it, others want to stand behind it.
That's right, and there's a lot of examples of other communities throughout the country that have done things like this that have been very beneficial. I should also thank our city attorney, who also serves as the city
Yes.
attorney, or the attorney for the organization. And I know just from dealing with him on a regular basis, he has gone far beyond his requirements to try to make sure that things like Woody's on the Water worked well, and things that are going on in the redevelopment authority area. I will also state that as a candidate for mayor, I listened to a lot of the folks who lived there and were relocating. And when you're doing something like this, it's very difficult to do it in a way that is beneficial, at least to the eyes of the folks that are living in the area and relocating. So I should also say to many of them, thank you for your tolerance. There were some, start and goes that didn't always seem as smoothly as they would like when things are reported in the media. People get confused. So our citizens that live there and have moved to other places should be commended as well. This is a project I think will be very beneficial to the city as a whole. And again, I just want to say thank you all for your efforts, because none of y'all are getting paid for this hard work.
Well, thank y'all for your support. We couldn't do it without you.
Is that data you can share with us?
Oh, absolutely. It's not trade secrets.
I would love to see it if I can read it.
There you
If I can
go.
understand
I'm
it.
sure he'd be happy to try to interpret to you too. Councilman Green.
I'll give this to Joe, and he can make copies to give to everyone if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all both very, very much. All right, now we want to do a quick update on where we are with Sandfield Cemetery. There's been a lot of discussion about that over last several months. It's been a concern of mine since I came into office, wanting to understand what portion of the cemetery the city actually owns and what portion of the cemetery that we do not. We are still in the process of trying to find out who actually owns the east side. The city owns the west side, which is the more historic side. What's going on in the other side is trying to determine who actually, if anybody, still owns it from the heirs that has been passed down over the years, and sometimes that's very difficult. We are in conversation with someone in town who has notified a council member that they think that they own it. We're in the process of trying to set up a meeting to determine that. Another concern that is going on within the community is that there are burials still happening out there when we don't know who owns the cemetery, and there's some concerns over actually whether people are being buried on top of other people. So that's a serious issue that has been a long discussion within the community that we're trying to get an answer for. And we are working hard to get those answers. And in the meantime, the city has taken over. It's been the city's responsibility to keep the east side up. And we have west side, I'm sorry, in the west side. There has also been concern over whether we're giving it the same attention that we're giving Friendship Cemetery, which is a legitimate question. As we mentioned before, there's a lot of grant opportunities for the historic side. We're very interested in seeing if we can eventually maybe have a fenced-in area there, a more permanent location for the types of events that we've been having with MSMS and other groups in the cemetery. So we just wanted to give an update on that. This is still, and we're working with Neil Schaefer to also get the measurements of the cemetery and everything. So just wanted to give a quick update to the council and to the citizens that we are still moving forward on trying to get solid answers on that. It's a little difficult to get some of this stuff ironed out, but it is a priority. Ms. Pat, do you want to give us an update on the IT director?
Yes.
Yeah, you can be right there.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning to everyone. Last council meeting, we voted unanimously to hire an applicant of the top 3 candidates for information technology. I've been in contact with that applicant. He lives out of state. That vote was contingent on successfully completing the preliminary testing and the background check. The background has been conducted. The preliminary medical testing has not. I attempted to schedule that with some clinics where he lived. No clinic would accept a purchase order. Therefore, he will be here the week of Thanksgiving and will call me when he arrives in town, and we will make that happen that week. He intends to begin the first day after the holidays, January 3rd.
Great. Thank you. And for those of you who may not appreciate the importance of an IT director, let me tell you, it is huge. We face everything, municipalities our size face every kind of issue from cybersecurity to all types of issues. And we have been in search of the right IT director for quite some time. And we are very excited about being very close to having someone in that role. One thing I want to add to for an update is that we have Joseph with Wagner here to give us an update on the process of, and you come on up, what we're doing with ARPA money is where, as far as where it's concerned with watershed and flooding. I can tell you that we were notified the end of last week that the first project that we put in, the Second Avenue project that we just finished, we did get approval of matching funds from ARPA on that, so that's very good news. The money that we allotted for Columbus Light and Water is also matched, so that's very, very good news. This is doubling the money that we have given to the city through the ARPA funds. As you all know, we've discussed many times, we have got other projects within the city where we have set aside about $3 million for flooding and watershed. And Wagner has been working with us on that process, and Jason is here to give us a little bit of an update and then where we are as far as giving money to, applying to the state for matching dollars on that.
Yeah, as the mayor mentioned, the first round started, as you know, September the 1st, and they had a minimum amount of applicants that did apply, so they decided to move the second round was supposed to be in March, around March 2023, so they decided to move it up to December the 1st. So the second round is coming up here in December, and we had about 11 projects, along with the projects that we're going to do for the City of Columbus, that were successful in the first round. So we're just coming to update to let the council and the mayor know that December 1st is that second round, and we're working towards a smaller project with the council and the mayor. It's 15th Street North near Schoolhouse Avenue. I talked with some of the residents out there doing our investigations, on-site investigations. Samantha Kroger, I think her name's Wrench. She shared some videos with me. I have a small presentation that I'll share with the mayor and the council later on, but it details the site. The site that we're looking at, 15th Street North, Schoolhouse Avenue. Back in the 1971 report, it was listed that this area had inadequate drainage support. It was about it. The study used a 10-year storm event, and it didn't meet those capacities. So we're looking at some of the possible ideas in that area is to add detention area. There's some lots out there that had homes on them. That's some possible spaces that we could implement some detention area, some outdoor class spaces, some bioswales, and this would also help with the storage in that area. I did do a site inspection on some of the inlets that are in that area, and I have pictures. Those inlets are in disrepair. When it does rain, when you get a normal event, you could see through videos that a lot of the water is just it comes up to some of the neighbors' steps. So we're looking at that project. Like I said, it could be submitted for this round of ARPA. So we're looking at that project and another project, the north side downstream of that. So we're just encouraging the city to go ahead and get ready to submit for the December 1st, because if you miss this round, we don't know if they're going to have another round. So we're just admonishing the city that we probably need to go ahead and submit for this round for that $3 million and also that smaller project.
Any questions, council? Also, I think it's important to update everybody on that Wagner and also our city Worth Thomas, our lobbyist, are still following up with NRCS? for
Yeah,
potential
yeah.
funding?
Yeah, the NRCS, we were anticipating that the NRCS funding would be here before the second round, but because of them moving up the second round, we still would like to go ahead and submit with ARPA, but we're still in contact with the NRCS about the funding, and we suspect that it should be here around December, January. You know, we just had elections, so we're hoping they would go ahead and make that decision.
And I'll take, and if the council wants to comment on this as well, everybody knows that I have been a sole, really encouraging the council to get behind these ARPA dollars for watershed and flooding, because it is an opportunity for matching dollars that we normally do not have. One of the reasons Columbus is in the situation that we're in right now with flooding and stuff is because we've not had the kind of infrastructure dollars to handle this. We have been to DC. Our elected officials there from Mississippi are very supportive. We've talked to a lot of different groups. What I will say too, when I was at the North Mississippi Mayor's Association in Tupelo a few weeks ago, and listening to a report from the mayor there and then having a discussion, the city of Tupelo put all of their ARPA money towards watershed and flooding, every penny. Their total water needs or watershed needs in Tupelo are almost identical to Columbus, 48 million. Now, having said that, I was encouraging the city and the county to put all of ours there because 50% of our city is in a flood zone. And the majority of that is happening in underserved neighborhoods. So what we're doing here is very important. We are committed to finding every penny we can and matching penny to try to alleviate some of these issues. The street that you mentioned earlier will not only, the work that they're talking about doing there will not only affect that street, but other areas of the city. The lady that he mentioned has lived there for 50 years, and I've seen the flooding up into their houses that's going on there. We have major flooding issues in this city that require more than just cleaning out ditches. So I thank y'all's hard work on this. And by the way, I will say that Tupelo said that they have 3 engineering companies that work together. Wow, 3 engineering companies that work together on a project. Imagine that. So this is good work that we're doing. We've had good work from y'all. We've had good work from Neil Schaefer. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to find alleviation for our citizens, and we have a major flooding issue in this city. So thank you for your work. Council, y'all have any more questions on any of this? All right, thank you, Douglas. Appreciate it. We also wanted to mention that we're going to clarify what the agreement has been with Golden Triangle Waste Services. Since the council did not take up the issue at the last council meeting, they have moved forward with a 2-day-a-week pickup. Is there any other discussion on that? Has there been anything that the council would like to discuss here? Has there been any follow-up from citizens? How do we think it's going? Anything else we need to discuss there?
It looks like it's gotten better since we last met with them, so, not as many calls. I think that, they picked up and doing a better job, so.
I have not had a conversation with them to know if anything changed with Eupora, which is the other city. They were proposing to go to one day a week. I don't know if that worked. Have you had any conversations? Anybody had any conversations with Golden Triangle Waste? Okay. We will also continue to look at what other alternatives are for the city in that area, as we were discussing before. It's always important for us to look at other options for our citizens long term. We're going to go over some review of some city projects. The amphitheater is also an area that we asked for support in last year when we, working with our lobbyists, we asked for additional funds to try to finish out the amphitheater. We did not get those that year, but we are still in talks with folks in Jackson. We had a meeting, Kevin and I went to a meeting with the MDA in Jackson in June or July, I think it was. A member of that organization, Steve Harden, is looking at coming to Columbus between now and Thanksgiving to take a look at the amphitheater and where we are. I've also had, Kevin and I have had meetings recently with local citizens who are interested in potentially investing in the amphitheater, trying to get us to move as quickly as we can to get it up and running. So there are a lot of, there's a lot of possibilities on the table there. We need to have an event there in the not too distant future. When we were in Jackson, they were asking us, had we been able to have events there even though it's not completely finished. We've looked with groups that think that we could potentially do that. So we'll continue to talk about that with the council and with the citizens about trying to move forward on the amphitheater. I will say that the folks that have been out there recently were pleasantly surprised that it was in as good a shape that it's in. A lot of people didn't realize. And we've been talking about the possibilities of how we have an event there that there's a concern has been if you have an event there and it doesn't turn out well, first impressions are hard to move away from. Well, the impression is that it's sitting there doing nothing now. And it was clear to me from the folks that I've heard from in Jackson when we're trying to get support is you need to be trying to use your amphitheater to see how you can, what the possibilities are there. And if it's in and you can look at it now, it's the best stage we have in the city. We use stages in other areas. That's by far the best one we have. We make the others work. Let's see what we can do there. But it's good news that we've got an update possibly from MDA. Our Highway 45 landscaping. Yep.
So I'm gonna try to do this quickly. I think I've heard the mayor twice say quickly, so pictures are worth 1,000 words. I've seen these before, but a few meetings ago, I showed y'all, and I'll show you this while Joe's pulling it up. He's been working magic over here to get it pulled through, but y'all remember these two renderings of 45, some uses the existing landscaping, some brand new, more hardy, perennial type planting as opposed to annuals that y'all have been doing. Helps save you on maintenance budget, but also obviously the front end recurring budget. Casey was saying that the budget for those used to be about $30,000 a year, so we cut down to $15,000 a year. And so what y'all asked us to do last time we were here, you said yes, we like that look. And so we went ahead and actually took, and Joe, I'm going ahead of you now. So went ahead and took each bed and laid those out. And so I didn't want to kill too many more trees, right, because we're talking landscaping, so I didn't give you all a hard copy. But we've taken and laid that out and come up with quantities of each bed. They would look generally like this. Some of the common plants that you would use, common to Columbus, that are hardy and built better for, road waste and old traffic, runoff that comes off the road. Y'all see they're killing a lot of these plants. Ginkgo trees, for instance, what you see here in the middle, that you see in reference downtown on 5th Street. Y'all see the small wells they grow in downtown. Obviously, they'd be able to grow in a situation like this. Jumping juniper, as I call it, muley grass, Aztec grass. You have Lord Bedlam, and also the muley grass is in the next rendering. The only thing that's different between this and the other rendering is the other rendering just shows if you ever chose to choose some of the plant species that are successful, that Lindstrom that's there, the golden looking stuff.
We already have that.
You already have that. So that's how you could incorporate what you have for cost savings. So we just kind of want to show you the difference, but incorporating these new plant materials. So going forward, you're not replacing plants every year, but also you're not having to trim back like the knockout roses that you're having to do 2 and 3 times a year, and you're not having to water them once or twice a week. So beyond just the annual plant cost that I mentioned earlier, this will also save you in maintenance. And so overall, with y'all's approval, what I wanted today to do is just tell you the plan's in place. We've met with Casey and the mayor and Jamie and basically and Jim, and our consensus was it doesn't hurt to get a contractor, landscaper in this case, to give us a cost for the plant material alone, but then also for the labor. And once you kind of know what that cost looks like, we decide how we move forward, one bed at a time or all at one time. So the other conversation we had is how do we afford it? We're going to ask Jeff to look into whether or not the Modernization Act money can be used because this is part of a roadway system. You can use it for lighting and sidewalks and signage and things of that nature. Well, this is landscaping that goes along with it. So if I can grass behind the curb that I'm putting on the road, why can't I do landscaping? It's all one form or the other of landscaping, right? So again, I know today's not about approvals, but that's where we are. And so we'd like to move forward just to get some costs so we kind of can throw, as I say, a better dartboard moving forward to kind of get some improvements made in those beds. I know y'all drive past them like I do every day and see that they need a little love. So I'll be glad to answer any questions on that.
Council, do you have any questions about that? One of the things I think is that we really talked to Kevin about is to try to find plants that are easily maintained. in the kind of weather that we have here in Mississippi. Also, as he mentioned, long-term, it may be an investment now, but it could save in budgeting going forward. At one time, he said like there was $30,000 that was put aside. Now, that also, having said that, that also includes, you know, the perennials, the annuals that you put in downtown and stuff. So we get a lot of phone calls about, you know, they had to take out some magnolia trees not long ago, and I got a lot of calls from folks in the community wanting to know what happened to those trees. Well, in some cases, it was disease. In some cases, it was maintenance, you know, hitting the trunks and stuff with the weed eaters. So there's a lot that goes into maintaining a beautiful city through plantings and stuff. And it seems to me, and these are products that MDOT uses. I mean, there's been a lot of research done on these types of plants and their longevity. So I encourage y'all to study that, council, and reach out to Kevin and Jamie or me with any suggestions or ideas that you have, because, you know, that having proper landscaping in that part of the city, or all over the city actually, is, you know, can have an effect on, you know, everything that goes on in the city.
Yeah, and going to feedback, not, you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, as I always say, and landscaping is one of those things. It's just like art, right? So even in our internal discussions the other day, between the two renderings, we had disagreements on what we did and didn't like in those. So you're not gonna hurt anybody's feelings if you have other opinions on
Right,
those
absolutely.
plants as well. So, but again, what was it, years ago, I'm gonna give Sonic Johnson credit, you gotta have a plan in order to deviate from it. So this is what they give you, so.
We also want to talk about the paving project, and this is primarily the money that was left over from the original project that we just finished, the bond money. We're starting to get calls from citizens wanting to know where the council is in their wards, when are we going to start using it, the money, and that kind of thing. So I wanted Kevin to kind of give us an update on it.
Right, so give y'all an update. We've talked about this a couple times in here, and I've gotten a call from at least, I know, 4 councilmen that are just curious about what we can do. And Jim, correct me if I'm too far off, but I believe there's about $400,000 left in our last bond issuance that was unspent. Obviously, we talked to the previous contractor about whether or not they would want to entertain spending the rest of that money, and they said, no, we want out of town. And I think it was mutual that they did move on, and so did we. So with that said, that money still sits unspent. What I've given you just now is a summary. Y'all know we always carry a deferred list. Last time, 2019, we brought you about $6.5 million worth of road improvements. Y'all bonded out to spend about $5 million. So $1.5 million automatically went on the shelf. Since then, we've added, over the past couple of years, additional roads as phone calls have come in. We try to keep a track record so that when y'all do go forward with your next process, we already have a good starting point. And so what I've given you is, first off, brought it into today's dollars. So we took the 2020 bids. Right now, it's up about 40%. Y'all around $100 a ton when you bid in 2020. We're easily seeing $140 a ton right now, even higher. But because of the size, the volume, economy of scale that you would get with this project, we feel like that's right now reasonable from a planning standpoint. So the numbers you see here are strictly what's on the deferred list. With that escalation in cost put in place. And so you can see with sidewalk work included, you're at 4.6 million right now of needs that have either we have seen or y'all have expressed you'd like to entertain moving forward. And that's before we've assessed any other streets that need additional paving. When we last did this in 2019, we were asked to only put on the list streets that we thought were in poor condition. So at that time, it included no streets that were in fair condition. And again, we've moved forward now almost 4 years from that time of assessment. So I wanted to, and I've given you each that list for your specific ward, and then kind of showing you the summary overall. So
Jason, you're thinking over there is that street that you mentioned earlier, is it on the list, right?
The overall, to give you an idea, I know there's a few councilmen who haven't been here. Since 2001, y'all have spent about $21 million. Y'all have normally done it either every two. And there was a stretch from 2007 to 2010, y'all did $1 million every single year. Most often that went for road only. No sidewalks, no drainage, nothing of that nature. 2010, y'all passed your complete street ordinance, which basically required you to throw in the sidewalk work, which so then started increasing that. So ever since 2010, y'all have been spending that on sidewalk as well. Your 2016 bond issuance, you actually decided to include drainage. So we did a lot of drainage work that year, but also we replaced a bridge on Deer Run with that money as well. But prior to 2012, y'all spent somewhere in the $1 million range on average. Since then, 2014, y'all spent $3.8 million. 2016, 4.2 million, and then this last time, 5.2 million. So you've obviously gone a little bit deeper and harder. And of course, costs have gone up as well. So costs are basically double now what I was getting in 2007. So with that, those are kind of the past histories of where things have gone. Be glad to answer any questions and where we go from here and what's happened in the past. I know is that we've gotten with our financial planner for the city to see bonds were always the way we've tackled this in the past. What's new is the Modernization Act. Y'all now get $1 million plus a year that can only be spent on road projects. So
And it's gotta be spent or we lose it.
it's got to be spent, but you also have to keep your annual budget for roadways the same. If you decrease your budget, in other words, play the shell game, they're also not going to fund you. So I'm not aware of how much y'all have right now, Jim. Are you aware of what that account currently has in it?
The modernization,
Yes, sir.
I tell you,
Should be a couple million.
it's about 2.5
Yeah.
million.
So you already have a good starting point, 2.5 million, and you're going to get $1 million every year. I can
It's
tell you.
actually 2.761.
Perfect. So that came about in 2019. At that time, you already had the bond. Now, that money can be used to pay back indebtedness, bond indebtedness for roadway projects. So y'all have that. That's an option. I do know other clients we've had have decided to go after 10-year bonds and put that money toward it every year to help pay off that bond. So there's no new taxes, no new debt, and that's an obvious source of revenue to pay it off. And with that, they've done, Starkville's an example, they did a $10 million bond or doing that, and they're going to allocate theirs. They're getting about the same amount y'all are. So just one idea, but I think in the past, we've always kind of stopped and had a working session and put our heads together on what made sense to move forward with. But I hope this is a good starting point to kind of see where we are based on kind of what was left over from last go round.
One of the reasons that we've been waiting on the money, the $400,000 that was left over, was because the prices were going up, and we were trying to wait. Your idea was to tell, you advised us to kind of wait and see how the prices are doing. That's what people are asking now. Should we still be waiting, or is there any new advice there or new?
Well, y'all have seen at the time I told you to wait where the highest gas prices have been. So they've come back down since then. That would have been this past summer, obviously. So can I forecast the futures of oil and gas? I wouldn't be standing here if I could. I'd have a whole other job, right? So no, I can't. But I would hope to goodness it wouldn't get as bad as it has been. I know our federal government is taking action to try to keep that from happening. So I would think moving forward, the economy is going to hopefully stabilize a little bit more, and it's not as volatile as it has been. There's a war going on that still keeps that in limbo sometimes, and other things in the global economy, but that I can't predict. So, but right now, I have no clients that are waiting, if you will. They're moving ahead and saying that we can't time the market. So,
Council, what are y'all's thoughts on?
The 400,000, that's not included in that 2.7, right?
Not separate.
So basically, we'll have over $3 million to pay. And the way money is to borrow right now, with the interest rate going up, you know, maybe we should do something with the $3 million that we have, and then look at borrowing if the interest rate go down.
So y'all thinking to look at, I mean, the idea I think was understanding is from the streets that were selected in the bond process, there were some alternative streets that has been the idea for y'all to go back and look at again in your wards to see which ones are priority. Is that correct?
correct. And in this cost, if y'all just decided to spend, let's just say the 400,000, then your unit price is going to go way up. You're not going to get near as much bang for your buck. So my recommendation on that front is if you're going to do something, put the other $2.5 million with it to make sure that you get economic scale back to the table. So.
Let me ask you something, Kevin. Did you say that we could use that toward paying off some of the bonds we already got?
Yes.
We actually got an AG opinion addressed to us that we can do that.
So, Jim, how are we standing? Because I know when we've been doing bonding, we've been getting more money, adding more money on top of more money. So where we at with that now? Would it be feasible to take this? I know we need street though, but I believe in paying off a debt. Would it be feasible for us to take this instead of doing street and start paying off some of this debt that we got?
Yes. The answer to that is yes. You could go either way. One interesting concept that I've seen from Butler Snow and from our government consultants is that some municipalities are taking that annual modernization tax payment and pledging it for a new bond issue. And that new bond issue does not account against the city's debt limit. So you could literally get money to use today, and you're simply pledging this modernization tax money to pay back. And the good thing about that is that the interest rates on that process is pretty good. And then we could take the current 2.7 million and pay down debt with that also. So there's some alternatives if we want to pave and pay down debt at the same time.
And tell them, Jim, you know, there's a time frame that we need to be spending some of this money, correct? When, is there a time that we need to have some of this spent that we're sitting on, or?
Well, the good news is no.
Oh, good.
No, the future news is yes,
Oh.
but I have filed both. I found that we didn't file properly in 2021, so I have filed that with the Department of Revenue, and I've just followed that up with filing for 2022. In both cases, we fully qualify for continuing. This will be the first year. 2023 is the first year we get 100%.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And so that number will be north of $1 million, I think, that we will get. But if we wanted to, you know, and it's certainly the city's decision, but this is, again, an opportunity to perhaps pay down some debt and still do some of the paving that you want to have done.
But we don't have any type of hovering deadline that we've got to move on the money we have in place.
That's correct.
Okay, good.
At least for 2022. Now, we have to, in 2023 fiscal year, we have to spend some money to make sure that we're ready to get it. So we qualify now for the.
So there is, we've got to start spending in 2023.
It's just
So that you qualify for 2024.
Okay.
It's the net amount that we initially spent the year that the act was enacted, so I think it was what, less than 200,000?
Yeah,
or
it's
something?
around 200,000. If y'all continue in your budget to spend that amount through Public Works, that's what they base their overall on, which is what we
Oh,
originally
okay.
reported.
So that's all you've got to spend every year to keep
That's
that.
right. And I'm sure unless y'all change it in this budget, then.
The debt that we have now, though, is pretty low interest rate right now, right? Because the interest rate was so low. So-
Yeah, I'm not in a good position to say what bonds are going for today, so I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but I will say that this, in the general obligation bonds that we have now count against the city's debt limit, okay? And so that's why, you know, when we were talking about what we did with light and water with the 8 million, we needed to make sure that that didn't count against the city's
Right.
debt
And it didn't, yes.
and, you know, so you know, certainly the government consultants would give us some better numbers on that, but I don't think you ever, regardless of the interest rate, I don't think there's gonna be an opportunity anytime soon to do refunding. You know, that's normally what you would do is the interest rates come down, you refund those bonds, and then you get some benefit out of it. I don't think that's gonna happen, so I think at this point in time, the best thing we can do, and it's responsible for the city too, is to look at reducing debt along with everything else that we're doing.
Any other questions, council? All right, Kevin, take us into an update on our roof repairs.
All right, Strip Mall Ground Roofing has repaired it. They did express concern about the grease coming off of the hood from the restaurant that's there. Said with time, that's just gonna damage the roof. Right now, it wasn't an issue, but we noticed it when we were up there. Bill Whittle with JBHM, since they're done with the Strip Mall portion, is going up there actually tomorrow to inspect that, and been in conversation with Regina to try to come up with a plan for how they are gonna remedy that situation.
Is that normal for grease to go up?
The lack of maintenance is what's, I think, abnormal, and how much it's building up and then coming down into
The lack of maintenance on their,
end, correct. So it's easy access, because obviously we've been up there several times, so it's not hard to get up there and do. There's a bucket there that you can take off and remove.
and so the grease eats away at the roofing?
Yes, sir.
Chief, Dwayne, is it a fire hazard?
Simple answer obviously would be yes, it is a fire hazard.
I just didn't know if this was flammable type of grease or.
It's the residue from the cooking. There's a hood vent system there that circulates all of the fumes upward and out of the building. As Mr. Stafford described, there's a system there that's designed to catch that grease. There's a company that inspects those hoods, and part of our business inspection is we check and make sure that they have gone through that process, but that does not include actually going and making access on the roofs. So the firefighters go through, they see the tags, they've been done, but I've had conversations with the fire marshal to follow up, and I think that's going to be remedied.
Well, we just renewed that lease. So I think what we need to do is figure out an answer that no matter what we do, if we put a new roof on, the last thing we want is more grease on the top of it.
Are we in an emergency situation right now because of this grease? No? Okay.
But it's just a concern long term. There's nobody pays attention to it, so. That's
Gotcha.
a problem right now. The other part is the CPD roof, 2 weeks. They should be out there in 2 weeks to knock it out. So if not sooner, they said no later than 2 weeks. So hopefully by the end of the month, Thanksgiving, all those repairs. Keep in mind, these are patches, so these are not a full re-roof, but still they should be completed. And we'll inspect that once that's done as well. So.
Very good. Any questions, council? We briefly talked on the Second Avenue culvert project.
Only update is Burns is complete. They're finishing out the punch list. They actually are out there this week doing that. There's a few things, backfilling around some boxes, cleaning out the flow line. Even Mayor and I talked about that.
So that was still to come?
Oh, yeah. They
Okay,
had cleaned
because
out
I was concerned.
some of the
I saw
apron,
that.
right. So
Okay.
believe it or not, it's still soft out there. Even though we haven't had much
Oh, I
rain,
believe it.
they churned the world up, as you can imagine, opening that hole up and putting it back. It's still rather soft. So they're having to tiptoe around when they can get in dry spots to finish out the work. But nonetheless, the final payment has been requested. We sent that to Jim this week. So, and then as y'all know, you were successful in getting the 50% match for that. So it is done.
Okay, don't go yet.
All right.
One of the things that we've looked at, council, this past week, and I think all of y'all are aware of this, is that the traffic signals here at 5th and Main, I walk them a lot because I walk a lot back around the city and back between my house and here. And sometimes the lights aren't working properly. You get the go and you get the stop. Sometimes you don't get the go, you don't get the stop. Columbus Light and Water, I visited with them last week. This has been an ongoing issue for a while. They got the lights fixed, so the stop and go are working now. You can see them. I think they're all working. You got the walking guy in the red hand telling you not to go. The problem is you take 2 steps out when the guy tells you to go, and then it's flashing red. And when people are visiting here and when people live here, they get a little freaked out when they're stepping out and it's changing that fast. Talking to Light and Water and to Kevin, it's an MDOT thing that they control the timing. Well, the timing's not right. I mean, because like I said, I walk them every day. So what can we do to get that corrected?
So we've reached out to MDOT twice. This actually came up when we were building the mini roundabout because I just thought they changed the signal because I noticed how short it was. First phone call I got was from Hucks. And because traffic would back up all the way, northbound traffic on 5th all the way to the restaurant. And they said this didn't used to happen. So I went out and watched it. And sure enough, you can only get about 5 cars through a cycle on north-southbound when it changes. And coming out of church on Sunday, I see the exact same thing. I know if I'm the 6th car, I'm not going to make it. I'm just going to wait through the cycle. So with that said, that's too short. We've asked MDOT to look at it. They said they've looked at it and everything's functioning as it should. I said it's too short. Can y'all reevaluate the timing on it? They said they would look at the timing on it and get back with us. Haven't heard back on whether they're going to do anything about it, but I do know it hasn't changed. So be glad to follow back up.
Yes, please do, because I mean, I encourage everybody to go out here if you feel safe enough to do it. If there are people here that walk it, step out there and see if it's.
What streets are MDOT and what streets are us?
So that's.
What makes that MDOT?
That's all.
It's a highway.
It's a 182.
Highway
69.
182.
Yeah, so we need to stay on top of that.
So we get the joy of maintaining it, but we don't get to control it. So.
But they don't control the walkway right there by Zachary's.
No, so
And
you
that's
want to get that up
not
there?
right.
Yeah, and that's
Maintenance stops down there by the car wash, right before you get to the car, on the other side of the car wash, in the state highway.
yeah. So that's the other one. This one is a more serious issue. The traffic signal at 5th and 2nd, right there between the courthouse and Zachary's, is very dangerous. We actually had somebody, I didn't realize this, but somebody was hit there a year or 2 ago, maybe? Like 4 years ago. There have been some citizens that have contacted me recently that they felt like they were almost hit there because of it, the problems. I've been almost hit going through there. I was talking to Light and Water about this and Kevin, and this is a more expensive project to tackle, but I think we have to look at it seriously and tackle before somebody's hurt there. You want to?
Yeah, so light water, what it is, the underground conduits are old, they're collapsed, they can't run new cabling through. That's what's causing the ped heads not to operate properly. So they got 2 quotes from contractors. Don't have the quotes with me, but they were more expensive than what Light and Water could do in-house. So last conversation I had with them as of a week ago was they were going to try to tackle it in-house. and just have to schedule out to get it done. So that's the last I heard was Mark was gonna get with his guys and figure out a good time, because they're gonna have to do it basically quadrant at a time. They're not gonna open up the whole intersection all at one time, but basically put in the conduits because of how many utilities are in that area. AT&T, C-Spire, then you have the normal light and water stuff that's underground there. There's a web of things underground, and any boring is potential to bore through any of that. So they're gonna have to open cut it to get the new conduits in.
He also mentioned they were having a hard time getting anybody to bid on it too, right?
Well, it's because they've come up and looked at it, and he's gotten bids on it, but because of how tight it is, everybody says I have a lot easier work that pays me better than this difficult work. High traffic, tight spaces. Obviously, you're gonna have a lot of complaints, a lot of ped traffic in the area too, so.
The work would probably have to be done on the weekend, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kevin, could you take a look at, I was looking at some signal controls for over in Jacksonville, and they're wireless. They communicate, but they don't need cabling. I know one of the manufacturers, Eltec, but there may be an opportunity to utilize that kind of technology there rather than having to bore and put cabling underneath.
Yeah, you have crosswalks that have that technology. Matter of fact, you can get solar on top of that, so you don't even have to power it up. So it runs on its own. We've done some here, not locally, but in the Golden Triangle region. So you're going to spend $10,000 to $15,000 on one crossing to do something like that. But if that's something I would like to look at, we can definitely pull that in. I believe
as opposed to how much to bore.
It was about the same. About the same.
Oh, well, that's no brainer. Because I was thinking the same thing. Surely with technology today, you can do that without having to tear up roads.
Yeah, you can. So it's just,
Well, and I think
one way, half a dozen another.
I think the thing to remember here too is it's an expense, but we don't want somebody getting hit by a car there. And I mean, it's, you know, I have had numerous calls from citizens.
And most people don't understand how to navigate an intersection when the ped heads aren't working and how to go with the signals. And so that's what you end up with, people crossing at the wrong time, almost getting hit. So that's the real.
And then you have those who they get in a hurry and try to jaywalk, right? Yeah. All right, thank you. The last thing on the safety reminders is we're going to just kind of give y'all a quick update on the Riverwalk Bridge. We can't say too much because we're still in litigation there, but it is still a danger. Stay off of it. We've got the new gates up there that look much nicer blocking it, but we are, I will say more than I'm supposed to. So council, do you want to give them an update?
Well, basically, we have a new scheduling order entered and a new trial date in 2023. So if we don't get it compromised, we'll be trying the case in midsummer. That's about all I can say.
That's between us and the barge companies, in case people forget that our bridge was hit by a barge. Okay, the Highway 82 mowing maintenance contract. Kevin.
All right, Joe's gonna pop this on the screen as well, but I'll show you. We put together just a maintenance contract in discussion with Casey and the mayor and others. What this is basically is our opportunity to put out for a third-party bid to mow your interchanges and also one straightaway. So there's 5 interchanges in the city. Casey and his crews have been mowing from the River Bridge all the way to the East Columbus exit and everything in between. MDOT will mow all that for you. The problem is you're only going to get it twice a year. And so the discussion has been, well, we would like to entertain maintaining those interchanges more often than that. And so what we've done is set up a system that would give you a bid annually to maintain either one interchange, all 5 interchanges, and then the one straightaway we've also included is the one at Lee Mall. So that would be between 18th Avenue and 45. Whereas all the other straightaways, y'all could either maintain yourself or let MDOT continue to maintain those. So what Joe's rolling through, so the way we've set this up, and I know this is obviously a thicker document than just 5 or 6 pages, but we've identified areas in each interchange where you would not want to maintain, obviously where there's trees, where Casey and them are not maintaining at this time. I've gotten with him and he's identified where they obviously don't touch. Everything else in the lighter, in the screen color, green, are the areas that they would mow. And so we've given an acreage, we've given them a spec, such as you have to pick up all the trash before you mow, you have to mow at this certain time, certain times of the year at this certain height, you have to herbicide or fertilize these certain types of times of the year. And then of course, there's 2 different seasons, right? You've got the growing season and the dormant season. So, and both seasons still have their own type of maintenance, such as trash pickup. So weed eating around posts, all those things are spelled out. So, but what we would do, and the thought process is you may have someone who's maybe not a big time landscaper or landscape company, but yet they have enough wherewithal to do one interchange, and they want to put a bid in on one interchange for whatever reason, or vice versa. You may have your companies who do this and say, hey, we would love to have a contract like this to maintain it. And so either way, we broke it down where they can bid individually, they can bid the whole thing or both. But then also we are asking them to give us a price per mow. It may be that we get into it, we decide we don't want to do it as much as the contract is set out for. And so that per mow not only means if you have an event coming up and you want an extra mow, how much is it going to cost you, but if you want to reduce it, how much is it going to cost to reduce by, or if they are delinquent on doing their services, it tells them how much you're going to take out of their contract every time they don't perform. So that per mow has a lot of different uses for it. So that's the way the bid's set up. So again, I know it's for discussion today, but with y'all's permission, we would love to put this out on the street just to get a number, to know what we're talking about, how much it's going to cost, and is it truly effective to allow Public Works to go back into the wards and do the mowing and trimming there that they've been focusing on lately. I believe they've gone back to the wards here recently and kind of quit maintaining the highway as much. So this is an attempt to get you. Those are just the roadways. We're not going to mow the roadway.
Also, what we also need to be doing soon is, and I've been in conversations with MDOT, we need to make them aware of what we want them to start doing again, because they weren't, they're not going to come unless we inform them. As we mentioned earlier, one of the things that got this conversation going was that we were under the impression we were being reimbursed from the state from the work that we were doing, and we found out that had not been the case recently. I'm still trying to find a way to maybe claw some of that money back from the state that we didn't get. If you look at different legal opinions, it's questionable whether we'll be able to do that, but I think we should try. And so in the meantime, y'all, and I want to commend Councilman Green because he's been putting a lot of sweat equity and trying to come up with a plan on this too, is to try to figure out what we're going to do with in these important areas, because this is, this is unlike a lot of cities don't have this type of entrance that they have to maintain into the main part of their city. So this is an important thing that we need to take seriously along with the landscaping in that area. So I appreciate your update and encourage the council to continue brainstorming on how we move forward on that. Do y'all have any comments to what Kevin just said? All right, Kevin, thank you.
Thank you.
Quickly, we wanted just to, at our last work session, there was some quick discussion about redistricting and annexation. Since then, there's been a lot of, questions from the community and others about, what is our thoughts on redistricting and annexation, and, how much we'd already invested in the redistricting process right now. We also had a third candidate that had wanted to talk to the city about redistricting and I guess potential annexation, and ended up not being at the council meeting. So we've been working with somebody. We've had a second group come in. So if we're going to discuss annexation, which I think cities should always be discussing annexation, there are other plans that have been out before about what areas do we go in to annex. You have to look at, is it cost effective? Can you, carry out the services that are needed? Also, what does that bring to the city from a tax base and that kind of thing? So these are serious topics that I think the council needs to discuss. And so we just wanted to bring it up today, not to actually discuss it today necessarily, but just to bring everybody in to being aware of this is a timely process. And if you're going to consider annexation, that needs to be done before we redistrict, because then you're gonna have to turn around and do it again if you don't. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts on that? All right. We have an interim city prosecutor that is working today and worked last Thursday. Mr. Harmon he resigned. Ms. Pat has an update on actually doing a search for that position.
Okay, thank you. I will be advertising in both newspaper outlets because I missed the packet today, but the deadline to accept the applications will be November 30th, and we will also have the notice placed on our website.
Any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, one question, Mayor, getting back to the redistricting and the annexation.
Yes, sir.
The group that came in a few weeks ago, he put a plan out there, the area that we wanted to go in. He asked, does anybody have any other ideas, to get in touch with him? That's what he said. Now, we're looking to go forward with this. So if you got anything you need to do, you need to talk to Mr. Rudy. Because we finna go forward.
Who is we?
The council, we finna go forward.
Oh,
So we need to
that's what
talk
we're talking about it here now, so the
That's
council
what I'm saying,
can.
you need to talk to him to see what area you're talking about before he put a plan on the table and come back and present it to us.
I mean, I think that's what the council does. The mayor, I'm just saying that if we're going to do this, the council needs to be, because, I mean, you know, I don't think everybody knew he was coming. Is that correct? We've already invested $8,000, $6,000 into the person we've been working with, who's been doing it for over 20 years. I don't have a dog in this hunt, other than if the city is going to consider annexation, I think you have to do it, and it's the council's decision and the council's vote. You have to look at a holistic approach. So I didn't take away from my understanding that we were supposed to contact him right away with anything. Are you saying the council has already decided they're going to vote to go with him?
No, I didn't say that.
Oh.
I did not say that.
Well, I'm just interpreting that from we, I
I'm
guess.
saying he put a plan out there, what he had. He put a plan out there, and I like the plan that he had. So if anybody got some objection to that plan, then they need to talk to him.
Yes, I agree. But I think the council needs to talk, I think we need to talk about that as a group as well, correct?
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
So we need to determine if there are other areas that need to be annexed before we talk about redistricting.
Yes, I think that is the fair assessment, in that we have, if you're going to redistrict, and I think the cities should always be looking at redistricting. I think we should be looking at how that affects the entire city. And I think that it's a conversation that should include the council and citizens. Columbus has had redistricting plans in the past that they've looked at and not gone forward and going in different directions. Annexation. So I'm not sure if we may want to do a work session where we talk about this, and as Mr. Mickens was suggesting, and have the group that came in 2 weeks ago to talk about the other plans. However, that's a council decision. But I think it's important that we don't delay. I think it's something we need to keep it on the front burner. Any other comments? All right, the
prosecutor, no, I was finishing up what Ms. Pat was saying about the prosecutor. So you'll be taking applications, and then they'll do it just like they do with, because it's an appointed position, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So it'll be just like when they apply for
Yes, that's correct. That's
any
the way
other thing, they can just put in their application for it.
done it in the past. They submit an application and a resume with their intent of being considered for the vacant position.
Right.
And once they request a job description, it'll have the pay on there.
Okay. And you'll be advertising that this week or next week?
It'll be in Sunday's paper
Sunday's
and Thursday's paper.
Thank you.
Yes, and we encourage any attorneys in the area to be looking for this is an important position for the city. So we hope that we have a lot of applicants for the council to determine who is the best person going forward in that role. It's an important role. The other thing is, and Jeff, can you speak to the Lowndes County Range Bullet Trap Agreement?
Not really. I know that we have an agreement with the county, and I think that I know there's a bullet trap out there. There's some
that needs repairs and painting.
DEQ requirements. You have to clean up the lead and dispose of it properly, and that sort of thing. And yes, it's in need of repair, but I don't really recall the details of our agreement. That was years ago we entered into it.
Well, we have a request, the sheriff has mentioned it to me before, I think where they're looking for us to help pay the cost, split the cost with whatever's needed there, because I'm assuming that, and not assuming, I know that our police department and our sheriff's department uses the range, correct?
Yes, and we both jointly paid for it. I don't think it was an even 50-50 split on the cost of it, but we did spend a lot of money on it, so did the county.
So there is a request in from the county or from the sheriff's office for us to help with that cost. It should be in your packets that you get before the next meeting, so we just wanted to get that out on the table in case there was any questions and if there was any thought on how much we pay and how much or we don't pay, just so everybody's on the same page with it and it's not a surprise to anybody. Does that make sense?
Since we're very close to getting a new chief, should we wait and let them have some input on?
Why don't I pull the agreement and see if it specifies 50-50, then I would think if it needs to be done, you wouldn't necessarily want to wait on the chief because we're obligated to kick in, but let me look at it if that's all right.
That's a good question though, Steve. Any others? Okay, the old fire station number 4, which sits out in East Columbus, there's been interest in leasing it by an organization that is adjacent to it. It's also come to our attention since talking to the chief recently that that roof's in bad shape. So I think the question is whether the city wants to consider going into a lease at this time, or do we want to evaluate the cost of that roof, and would it be better for the city to sell that building instead of leasing? I mean, one of the things is, I think in the discussion here, the Bodybuilders in Christ is a nonprofit that has been doing a lot with individuals in the city that are dealing with alcohol and drug addiction, and they are growing rapidly. I think they have another church building somewhere else in the city, but the buildings that they're using is right there next to where this old fire station used to be. They had an interest of being able to expand into that because it was so close. So Jeff and their board came to us to have a discussion about bringing this before the council and getting an agreement on leasing it to them. But I also think it's important that y'all are aware of the roof of the station and that cost. Chief, do you have any thoughts that you would like to add to that today?
Not very much, Mr. Mayor, just to say that this is about 3 years ago. We did have an estimate for the repair of that roof, and with Miss Regina Bonner's help, we found out it was around $20,000, and because we knew we were going to the new Station 4, we decided not to incur that cost. But there is significant roof damage there.
Do we use interest in buying it? I know I've had several people call me that did have interest in buying it, so we might look at,
Do we use it at all?
The fire department does.
Okay, I thought we were doing training or storage or something, but
initially we were, but I moved everything out.
Okay.
And with this group, I know discussions had been if we were going to lease it to them, if they were going to help with projects in the city, like, maintenance and cleaning. Some of their work, the guys that go through that training there, go through that program, have looking for work within the city, like volunteer work, that might be a place for storage of those kinds of things, but that's just been that's just been a discussion, hasn't been anything serious. I don't know if this nonprofit is interested in buying or not. Have they indicated that to you, Jeff?
All I have is a draft lease from Tim Hudson for a monthly rental, so I don't know the answer whether they're interested or not.
But I'm with, I was not aware of how bad that roof was until recently, but I agree with, for what it's worth with, I think this is a wonderful group, and I would love to be able, if it was a win-win for them in the city, yes, but if it's not, and that there's interest in purchasing it, I think y'all need to look at all options.
Did they throw out a price per month, or did we?
They threw out a price per month.
Share that with us?
200. Which
$200?
$20,000
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
$20 more.
So it's
Grandchildren will finally.
Yeah, it's of course, it's not a business-wise decision if you lease it for that, but you do have a right under our general power statute to lease for less than fair value to Elia Missionary Organization or a 501c. That is a 501c, so you could do that if you want to.
And that was the price 4 years ago, you say, so it's probably much higher now.
It's probably
so,
double.
Yeah, right, so I would look into selling first if they're interested in buying it, or somebody else may be, but just my.
Have you had some recent inquiry on it?
Probably about a year or so ago.
We might call back and see. I will tell you that, you know, I have met some of the people who run this nonprofit. They're very impressive. I know they're doing good things for our community and helping these individuals, but again, the city has to make a wise decision for the city. But I think it's, you know, you take all those elements into consideration. That sounds like a low amount to me as well.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts on that?
Is this building in better shape than the one that we store our records in now?
That's a good question. I bet it is.
Not much. It's not in good shape. I've walked through it once or twice, but.
It cost you a lot more money to re-roof the Maxim Medical though than it would.
And I think the reason that this organization, the Bodybuilders for Christ, they were so interested in it because it literally butts up to where they're already located. I think that's why they were hoping to do something like this.
Yeah, sell it to them cheap enough and don't have to put a roof on it and be through with it.
Yeah, I think if the city was going to maintain it, to me, would be if there was some kind of future use for the city for that building, and I don't see, personally, have not seen that. I mean, I don't think we're in the business should be in the business of holding on to buildings. All right, our next work session is Thursday, December the 1st at 10:30. Our council meeting is this Tuesday at 5 o'clock at the municipality complex. If there are no other, yes.
You got to make it happen about the police chief thing.
Oh, yes. The council and I met this morning. The council did make a decision to make an offer to one of the candidates. And that is all we're going to say at this point.
Question for either you or the council. We're preparing the check for Light and Water.
Yes.
$1,013,000. Did you want to do a presentation of that check at the next council meeting?
I think it would be nice for us to do that. It shows our, you know, the fact that we're working with Columbus Light and Water on behalf of ours. So yeah.
Preparing that check for Light and Water. If you guys want to do a presentation and talk to them.
At the next council meeting, Tuesday.
You got a big one, or are you talking about?
We might work on it.
It's a big check.
All right, thanks everybody.